creates 6 times the metabolic heat, so it burns 6 times technically, or at least metaphorically, of the calorie rate of what people are eating. So you always eat more food when you're cold, because metabolically that's like putting fire or putting wood on the fire. There's only 3 ways I know of to produce heat as a human being. One is to exercise at the expense of food. One is to build fire at the expense of potentially your entire town if you don't know what you're doing. And one is to eat more food. So the food factor equates 2 out of 3. That's why when I teach winter survival courses, food becomes a priority, where food is not a priority in most short-term survival situations, because no one's going to starve to death in 3 days. Now, if you're diabetic, we'll talk, because food instantly has a priority. So that's why it's very hard and not morally responsible to offer boilerplate survival advice when there's so many different people on the planet that have different needs. That's why every family needs to know what makes them tick.
Isn't the key to teach them how to think about this and what they should be thinking about, and not just boilerplate items? But there's a foundational gestalt, right, that we're covering that I think is giving people a glimpse of some key aspects of what they need to know before they read the book. One other thing, and then I really want to invite you back on the show when you return from your travels, as much as you travel, and that is shoes. Let's talk about shoes. If the grid goes down, are you getting more shoes? How many pairs of shoes should we have? What should we have in both warm and or cold climate?
Well, I'm not the shoe expert, obviously, but I think that, the pumps at the office make a poor choice when you have to walk 10 blocks home when the subway's down, so comfortable walking shoes, whatever someone's comfortable walking with. The main thing is locomotion. Your feet are your major source of transportation, whether it's hiking boots because you're in the Rocky Mountains, or, quality sandals if you live in Venice Beach. Whatever gets you down the road that's comfortable for your foot, you should have 1 or 2 or 3 pairs. And they're broken in, and then 1 pair is stashed. Or you have an older pair of footwear that's under the desk at the office. They don't look fancy like your pumps, but who cares? You're not going to be wearing them. If the power goes out in the office building, you're going to be putting on your penny loafers or whatever it was that you stashed instead of throwing them away. They're not trash shoes that you're leaving there, but they're definitely used and broken in. That's a personal preference question, depending upon where you're living, your foot type, and how far you think you need to go. But definitely, footwear is, even I have bought hiking boots that I still have to break in because I hate them so much, but they'll be valuable. If I need them, I have them. I don't wear them per se, but I know how difficult it is to make shoes, less so sandals with a piece of rawhide or whatever. But man, if you want to get around or catch the rescue bus full of refugees from the hurricane, you better not be doing it in high heels.
Absolutely. And the last, most difficult question before we end this segment is the following. Dead bodies are around us. What do we do? What is the protocol? What should the concerns be? I know you mentioned this in length.
It's a huge deal. When I went to the research for No Hell Breaks Loose, I couldn't find the information I wanted from the CDC. I couldn't find it from the World Health Organization. I couldn't find it from FEMA. Like, no one dies in a disaster. Come on. We're all too stupid to know how to, we must not need to know this, right? If they don't have it on their websites, BS. What people need to know, though, is if you do move or mess with a dead body and the grid comes back up, you're in for a huge investigation. So anything that you choose to do should be heavily documented, ideally with photographs. You write stuff down, you bury it in a Ziploc bag or something with the corpse or whatever that is. But you need to know how to deal with a dead body, because if nothing else, if there's no emergency response left to deal with the dead guy on your porch, it's a huge buzzkill to the family members when they're trying to keep their attitude straight and you have a guy half as big as a cow starting to peel apart in the noonday sun on the porch by the lazy boy. So that needs to be dealt with. And there's various ways to do that depending on your area, and I don't really want to get too heavily in that as a soundbite on a radio show. Suffice to say that dead bodies, unless they died of a contagious disease, do not spread disease. So you have disasters in India, where they'll spend all these resources burning 1,000 bodies at the expense of the living, because they're worried about those bodies that died in a mechanical storm spreading disease. That is not true. Now, what they will do is break apart and leak feces and whatever, and of course that's a contamination problem. But unless a body died of a contagious disease, it's not going to suddenly come up with a contagious disease and spread it to your loved ones. So if Uncle Frank dies because the porch collapses on him in a tornado, he's not going to give your family cholera or something like that. So you need to deal with the body, but you need to do it with some semblance of common sense and a coolness as much as you can, and realize, okay, Uncle Frank can wait. You know, we need to deal with little Susie right now, and we'll deal with this body when we can. Now, how a body breaks down is dependent on two main factors. One is the ambient air temperature. How hot is it? The hotter it is, the quicker we turn to slime. The other aspect is the certain type and amount of flora in the body itself, the little bugs we naturally have. So you could have two dead people that died at the same time in the same 80-degree temperature, and one looks fairly normal after 6 hours, and the other looks like a giant purple cow after 6 hours because of the intestinal flora alone. And that's the wild card, right? We don't know what's inside Aunt Bertha, you know? So we want to deal with that because we might have to deal with it. I'm not advocating messing with corpses. What I'm advocating is protecting your family from psychological neglect and potential fecal matter in a time when there might not be enough emergency response personnel to deal with the body in your front yard.
That's smart. It's just that in this society, most people are not used to looking at a dead body when it's been cooled and prepared and everything's all neat and tidy. But when accidents and emergencies happen, these bodies are not like that after a certain amount of time. That's why I thought I'd ask you that question.
Yeah, they will look very scary and funky, you know, and that's just the way death is, you know, when it's not sugared over. And people should be at least mentally aware that, you know, during disasters, people can die, and they do die. And they might float around for several days, case in point, Katrina. And that, you know, doesn't need to be a scary thing if it's an organic thing. And there's certain thing that needs to be dealt with regarding that. But that potential fear of the unknown and scary, yucky stuff that we've insulated ourselves with as a quote-unquote modern advanced culture, it's there, and it will appear.
We so much appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you'd like to say on the show today?
I appreciate you having me, and I hope that your listeners take a greater interest, if not already, in preparing for themselves and their families' independence and welfare in potential emergency scenarios. And if that is the case, then it's been a job well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking with, learning from, and listening to Cody Lundin, the author of the best-selling book, 98.6 Degrees, The Art of Keeping Your Ass Alive, and When All Hell Breaks Loose, Stuff You Need to Survive When Disaster Strikes. Also, he is the founder and president of Aboriginal Living Skills School, LLC, Adventures in Outdoor Survival, Primitive Learning Skills, and Urban Preparedness. You can reach him by going to www.codylundin.com. And also, please watch him on the Discovery Channel news show. Say what that is, Cody.
The show is called Dual Survival, and it premieres this Friday night, June 11th, depending on what time zone you're in, between probably 8 to 10 p.m.
Cody, many blessings. We look forward to watching the show and learning more from you. I look forward to coming to your Living Skills School. Thank you so much for being a guest on It's Rainmaking Time. Many blessings.
Thanks for the opportunity.